Joining me ahead of the announcement is Sky News US correspondent Annelise Nielsen. Annelise, thank you so much for your time. When is Joe Biden expected to declare he's running for president again?
Look, it's really one of the worst kept secrets in Washington, D.C. Every time Joe Biden's been asked about it over the past few months, he's been hinting that it's not far off, but the pressure's been mounting because there's a lot of operatives who need to get into position if this is going to go ahead. And so the reporting is that Joe Biden's set to announce tomorrow DC time. The expectation is it's going to be a video that's released by the White House, and there'll be a more formal event after that. There is a very packed schedule on the calendar for the president tomorrow. He's attending a union event, which would very much speak to his core base. He also has a state dinner, a state visit by the South Korean government. And so this is probably a good time for the administration to go ahead and say, look, we've got this busy calendar. He's ready to take on another 4 years, and he's going to be in a high profile position anyway. But one of the other things that's supposedly influencing his decision is apparently Joe Biden is very superstitious, probably not unpredictable for an Irishman. And he declared on the 25th of April 4 years ago, and tomorrow local time is going to be the 25th of April again. So he's hoping a bit of luck to get him through for a second campaign.
But the thing is, his poll numbers have been dreadful for most of the time he's been president, and they're still dreadful. Do even Democrats want him to run again?
Well, look, this is one of the issues is if not Joe Biden, who? There's been no really obvious contender out there. And one of the best polls out there is an election. They can say that he won the last one. So he's in a good position to win again, especially as the #1 Republican contender is looking like Donald Trump. He's consistently polling ahead of Ron DeSantis. And even in the last few weeks, has been pulling much further ahead of Ron DeSantis, who can only really keep up with Trump if it's a two-party poll. As soon as you start adding in other presidential contenders, Trump seems to hold on to his supporters, and then those who are moving around will go around to a lot of the other different Republican candidates. They start to consider Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, the other candidates that are looking likely to shape up as contenders. But for the Democrats, at least, it is really hard to campaign against a sitting president who wants to run again. Even one who's 80 years old will be 86 by the time he leaves office if he does win again in 2024.
I just wonder what he's going to campaign on, because what would you say would be his, not that we agree with him, but what would be his signature achievements that you could point to? I mean, the economy's not going that well. Inflation's high. People are really feeling the pinch. America's reputation around or projection of strength around the world is not great. What would he point to?
Look, the Inflation Reduction Act is the #1 thing that they point to. One of the other things that they talk about is the fact they did get gun control measures through, and they are pretty modest, especially in the terms from an international perspective. But for the US, that was quite remarkable after Uvalde that they did actually manage to get some kind of consensus on Capitol Hill. He talks about bringing down the political rhetoric, bringing down the temperature. But I think one of the challenges is going to be that he met that moment. It was really politically volatile and things have calmed down. But this isn't going to be the same campaign. He can't avoid public events like he has in the past. He can't avoid journalists like he has over the last 2 years of his administration. Keeping track, he answers the fewest questions of any modern president in US history of journalists. And there are serious questions about whether he can keep up as an 80-year-old. It's not just age. He has had some issues, not just his well-documented lifelong stutter, but just keeping up with questions being answered. The other day, he couldn't spell the number 8. I know that a lot of these things get picked up and made fun of, and they're jokes and poked at on Twitter, but there are serious questions to be answered as well. If you're asking to run for president again, Nikki Haley, the candidate for president for Republicans, has already made a point of this, saying anyone over the age of 75 should have to do a mental competency test. And she keeps saying it. It's obviously polling well for her campaign.
Absolutely. Annelise Nielsen, thank you so much for your time. We'll speak to you when we hear from the president as to whether he will run again. Thank you very much.